Hello. Hi. How are you doing? This is AD from Civilized Studio and I welcome you back to the channel. In today's video, we will be continuing our C programming slash coding journey from where we left off last time. In the last video, we went over how to actually set up the C development environment, and in today's video, we will be doing some basic programming. And for today's video, I've chosen a program from my university, and let me show you. Here's the program. The reason I chose this program is because this program includes some very basic and necessary functions, let's say, that you will need for almost every C program. And again, I would like to say that I'm a student. So it's best if you think of it as learning with me instead of learning from me, because mistakes will happen. But mistakes are a part of life, and mistakes are even a part of C. So without further ado, let's take a look at this program that I chose for today's video. Let's go through it. I will read through it, and at the end I will try to explain what it actually wants us to do. So let's start. An online shop offers products for €1 per unit. However, a quantity discount is offered for larger orders. Starting with an order quantity of 10 units, each unit only costs 90 cents. And starting with 50 units, only 75 cents. That must be a really cheap object, but let's continue. If nothing or a negative quantity is ordered, the price is 0. For orders under €20, a flat shipping fee of €5 is charged. If the order value is €20 or more, the flat shipping fee is waived. The template file is price.c. We will not be using a template. I will write it from the ground up, but let's leave it. Let's forget about that. There is a template file. I should have deleted it. Let's go ahead and delete that, because we will be making this program from ground up. And here are the different, let's say, parts of the programs. First of all, it wants us to define constants of type integer that represent the price categories in cents. Important, in cents. The order quantity limits, the flat shipping fee, and you should end up with 7 constants defined. Next, write a function stub for the price function. Price should receive the number of units ordered and return the total price. Value plus shipping costs, if applicable, again important, in cents. Use the integer data type for the function parameter and for the return value. Also, add a comment to the function describing what the function does. Implement the price function according to the task description. For example, for the input 22, the function should return the value 2480, 22 times 90 plus 500. So here's the program description that we have to make. Important thing here to remember is that we are working with type integer, and the price categories have to be in cents. So that just means that instead of writing €1, we will write 100, because €1 is equal to 100 cents. And we need to write a function stub for the price function. A function stub basically just is just a comment which describes what the function does, and it wants us to write a function price which has the number of units ordered as an input and returns the total price, calculating the value and shipping cost. The shipping cost is again this €5 fee which is charged if the order is less than €20. So a program which can calculate how much customer has to pay depending on the amount of goods or objects ordered is basically what we have to be coding in today's video. So without further ado, let's begin with the coding. So to code, I'll be using Visual Studio. Again, if you're having trouble setting up the C environment, then I would highly recommend you check out my last video where we went over on how to on getting started with C development or C coding, and we also went over on how to get Visual Studio if you want to use it. You can use any other program if you are more comfortable with it, but for the purpose of this video, I'll be using Visual Studio. So let's go ahead and let's write some actual code. Before we do that, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the first task that we have. So A, define constants of type integer that represent the price categories, the order quantity limits, and the flat shipping fee in cents. You should end up with 7 constants defined. Okay, so before we write the constants, we will go ahead and include the standard library, which is stdio.edge. There we go. We have included the standard library, and now the first task is to define 7 constants. I'll go ahead and put a comment called constants, and we will begin defining our 7 constants. If you remember, the constants are the price categories, the order quantity limits, the flat shipping fee in cents, which basically means all these things, and we should have 7 of them. And they are of type integer. Important. So our constants have to be of type integer, and they should be in cents, not in euros. So let's go ahead and let's write the first constant, which will be the normal price for an object. Let's go ahead and write normal p. And since it's in cents, so we will go ahead and write 100 instead of 1. That's a normal price, and let's go ahead and write the other prices as price categories as well. Int low p is our first discount price, which is 75 cents. So we go ahead and write 75. Then we go ahead and write the lowest that someone can pay for an object, which will be 50 cents. Let's go ahead and now let's write the order quantity limits, which is 10 and 50. We will go ahead and write int low q, which just means low quantity, and that is 10. Let's go ahead and write another constant, which is the higher quantity of objects that have been ordered, which is 50. High q, which is here 50. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 constants. We need 2 more. So the 2 more could be easily our shipping fee, ship f, which just means our shipping fee, which, if you remember, was 5 euros or 500 cents. The next constant, or the last constant, would be our order limit. If you order for less than 20 euros, then you have to pay a shipping fee of 500 cents. 500 cents. So let's go ahead and write order lim, which is 20 euros or 2000 cents. There we go. Now we have our 7 constants set up. We can move on to the next part of the program. Before we move on to the next part, some of you might be wondering, why are we writing the constants all in uppercase? There is a reason to that, because we will also be writing some variables like price. Price will be used to calculate the actual price of an object, and the reason that we write constants in uppercase is that because it's easy to differentiate. Just by looking at the code, you can tell what's a constant and what's not. Like right now, I can take a look at the code, and since I'm following this practice of writing constants as uppercase and variables as lowercase, I don't need to think about it too much. I can just take a look and say log p is a constant because it's an uppercase, it's a constant, and price is a variable because it's in lowercase. You don't have to do this. You can also write the constants in lower and the price in higher, or any way you like it, but just a practice that I like to follow. And if you also follow this practice, then it may make your coding journey much easier. So now that we have our 7 constants, let's move on to the next part of the program. The next part, or part B, is write a function stub for the price function. Price should receive the number of units ordered and return the total price. Value plus shipping costs if applicable in cents. Use the int data type for the function parameter and for the return value. Also, add a comment to the function describing what the function does. So to write the price function, we need to first write a function stub. What is a function stub? A function stub is different from a function description. A function stub is just basically a placeholder. If you write something like this and n, then we go ahead and open our function and we write to do, then this is a function stub, something which has to be done later, or something, or rather a placeholder for the actual function. But since we are going to be writing this function right now, we do not need this. So we have our function int price, and what this function gets is the number of objects. Let's say int obj. Obj is the number of objects that the price function gets. So and before we go ahead and start working with our price functions, we will write a variable called int price. But in price, it does is price is used to, or rather, let's call it int total. Int total, or rather total, is a variable of type integer, which we will be using to calculate the total price given the number of objects inside this price function here. Int is the return type of this function. The total value of total value will be of type integer, so we will be getting an integer value back. So we go ahead and write integer, which is the return type, price, which is the name of the function, and int obj just means that object obj is of type integer, and what obj is obj is just the number of objects that are being ordered. So let's go ahead and let's write this function. So first price is if there is no discount, then the price is just the number of objects, which is obj, times the normal price, which is €1 or 100 cents. So total is obj times normal price. But we also have discounts. To write those discounts, we will use if statements. What if statements are, well, I will explain once we write them. If the number of objects is more than 10, let's say if obj is greater than equal to 10, then we need to provide a discount, and then an object does not cost 100 cents, or rather just 75 cents. So in that case, total will be equal to the number of objects again times the low price, which is 75 cents, which is low P. So if there is no discount, then total is the number of objects times the normal price. If there is a discount, which we are checking with our if statement checks if the condition inside this bracket is true. If this condition is true, then it executes the code which is inside the if statement. If this condition is not true, then it just skips the whatever is inside that if statement. So if the number of objects is greater than equal to 10, then total is the number of objects times low price. And if total, or rather if the number of objects is greater than equal to, let's say, 50, then we need to provide an even greater discount. And in that case, the total price would be equal to the number of objects times the lowest price that someone can pay, which is, in our case, 50 cents. And for that, we are using the constant lowest p. So we'll go ahead and write lowest p. And if the number of objects is greater than 50 or equal to 50, then we will use this function to calculate the price. So now that we have our three conditions set up, if the number of objects is less than 10, greater than 10, or greater than 50, we need to go ahead and also calculate the shipping fee. How are we going to calculate the shipping fee? Well, since total already calculates the price, given the number of objects, we can use total to check if this price is less or greater than 20 euros or 2000 cents. For that, we're going to be using if statements again. We will write if total is less than 2000, then we will add to total the shipping fee, which is our constant ship f plus ship f. There we go. And at the end, we will return the total price, which is stored in our variable called total. So there we go. That's our price function, which checks if the number of objects is greater than 10, 50, and if the total price is less than 20 euros, then it adds a shipping fee on top of it. So now that we have written the price function, we also need a way to test it. And to test it, we will write our main method. So let's go ahead and open the main method, and let's take a look at the next task, which wants us to implement the price function according to the task description. For example, for the input 22, the function should return the value 2480, adding the shipping fee on top because 22 times 90 is less than 20 euros. So to call our price function, we will use another variable. Let's say int final p, which is our final price, and again lowercase because it's a variable. And what final p will do is it will call the price function for 22. If you look at the price function again, you will understand that we are giving to the price function 22 as an integer value, which comes instead of obj. We will pass on to the function 22 as an integer value, and the function in the function it will take the place of integer obj. So we want the result to be 2480, and how are we going to print the result? Well, to print the result, we're going to be using something called printf. Printf is what you use to print basically anything in C. So let's go ahead and write total, or the final price, is equal to %d. What is %d? Well, let me go ahead and first write final p. But since final p is a variable of type integer and we want to print it with using printf, we have to use something which is called a modifier. It tells the printf statement that we want to print something of type integer. So we write the final price is %d, which basically tells the printf statement that, hey, we want to print something of type integer. So Let's go ahead and save all this using Control S. And finally, we can go ahead and test our function. To test our function, we will move on to our terminal and we will write dir again to list all the files and directories. And there we go. We have our shop.c file. And to run or to compile this program, we're going to be writing make followed by the name of this of our C file, which is in our case just shop without the .c extension. So we go ahead and write make shop and we go ahead and press enter. So as we see, our program actually compiled without any errors, which is really nice. And if you have made any errors, it should tell you now. But since we did not make any errors, it basically compiled our program. And if we write dir again, we will see shop.executable, which is our runtime file, let's say. Shop.c is our source file where we have this code. And when we want to run our code, we are going to be running this executable. And to run this, we will go ahead and write / followed by the name of the executable. The final price is 2150. We have indeed made a mistake. So I did some testing and I found out the reason for our little error here. I had defined the constants wrong. Instead of writing low price as 90, I wrote here 75, and instead of the lowest price being 75, I wrote here 50. That's the lowest price that someone can pay is 75 cents, and the low price, which comes in if you order more than 10 objects, is 90. And taking a look at the program description again, starting with an order quantity of 10 units, each unit only costs 90 cents, and starting with 50 units, only 75 cents. So, correcting our constants, our program should work just fine now. So let's go ahead and compile this again. Let's make shop, and let's run our code. We are still making that error. So the low price is 90. I need to remove this line because what's happening is it calculates the price and depending on the number of objects, and then comes this line again. Total is object times non-price. So if we input 22, it goes into this if statement, calculates the total price, and then it comes out of this if statement, checks the next if statement, which is false, and then comes here, and since there is no if statement here, it executes this total function and comes on to a wrong result. So let's go ahead and remove this line that I just added to check, and let's go ahead and save that, and let's compile our code again, and let's run. There we go, 2480, just as we wanted. So we made a few errors. I input the constants wrong. Low P should have been 90 instead of, I think it was 75 before, and lowest P should have been 75, and I think it was 50 before. I did some testing, then I added some lines, but the main problem was that we had input our constants wrong. But since we have corrected them, we come on to the result 2480, just like our C part or our, let's say, our test wants it to be. So how does this work? Let's start with the main method. Inside main, we create a variable called final P, and that final P variable calls the function price. And the function price wants an integer input parameter, and that integer input parameter is int object. So when we write int final P is equal to price, it calls the price function, with 22 being the input integer parameter. It goes here, checks, does the calculation. This line will always get executed. It doesn't matter the number of objects is 1, 10, 100. This line always gets executed. So when we input 22, it comes here. It calculates the price, which is 22 times 100, which is going to be 2,200. But what happens then is it goes into this if statement, checks this case. If the number of objects is greater than 10, which is true in our case, it executes this condition. Total is equal to object times the low price. And this total overrides this total. I hope that makes sense. When we use the same variable again, the previous value gets overwritten. So that does not make that's not a problem. If we were to write this line at the end of all the if statements, let's say here, like I did previously, then that would be a problem because it would override this condition which we want to be true. But since we wrote it before the if statements, then that's not a problem. So we input 22, the compiler goes here, checks this condition, it's true, calculates the total price, comes out of these if statements. This condition is false, it doesn't matter. Then it goes here, checks if total is less than 2000, which is true. 22 times 90 is less than 2000. Then it adds onto total the shipping fee, which is in our case 500. And at the end, return total, which is an integer value. And that's why we wrote integer price. That's it. That's all I wrote for today's video. In today's video, we use some very basic and some, let's say, necessary functions, modifiers. We use if statements. We use constants. All these things are very basic and they're very necessary to C programming. And if you want to try them, the best way to learn or to code is just to try it yourself. So go ahead and feel free to start coding on your own. I will put the code for this video and from the last video in this video's description, and I will also put the program description that we used that I wrote on Notepad. I will also put that in the description. So that was all for today's video. If you found the video interesting or if you learned at least something from it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time.